Welcome to this video lesson. In this video lesson, we will cover how to expand binomials. We start this lesson on expanding binomials by this investigation. So why don't you folks try out this investigation on your own. Do the first part over here, so evaluate the following. See how the answers to the third question relates to the first two questions. Try some more examples of it to see if it still applies or the rules still apply. Then try to come up with a way or look for a pattern that can work for any multiplications of a plus b times c plus d. And see if you can find that pattern through this investigation. So pause the video, try it out, and then proceed, and I'll go over the answer. Okay, for the very first one over here, I have an expression that I'm trying to evaluate, and I'm going to use BEDMAS. So 3 plus 7 inside the brackets is 10, and 2 times 10 is 20. For the next one, 3 plus 7 again is 10, and 5 times 10 is 50. And 3 plus 10 again is 10. 3 plus 7 is 10, and 2 plus 5 is 7, and 7 times 10 gives me 70. If I look, I can see that if I add the 20 plus 50, I will actually get 70, so I could write that in. So 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Let's try that out for the next example and see if we get the exact same thing. So I have 3 plus 1, which is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 plus 1 again is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 plus 1 is 4. 2 plus 4 is 6. 4 times 6 is 24. And I can still see that 8 plus 16 is equal to 24. So I can say that 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Alright, so now let's write this equation over here, and then kind of like in terms of brackets. So in the first one I have, let's write it out in blue, I have 2 plus 5 times 3 plus 7 is equal to 2 times 3 plus 7, which is my first equation, and 5 times 3 plus 7. So if you look, you can see that I'm saying that, first of all, 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, so that means 3 is equal to 1 plus 2. So 2 plus 5 times 3 plus 7, which is this, is equal to 2 times 3 plus 7, which is my first equation, and plus 5 times 3 plus 7, which is my second equation. So let's write that in with purple. So this is 3 is equal to 1 plus 2. If you look really closely, you can see that this is kind of, we're expanding things in a way. I have 2 multiplied by 3 plus 7, so I have 2 multiplied by 3 plus 7, plus the 5 times 3 plus 7 here. So once again, I have 2 multiplied by my bracket, so 2 multiplied by my bracket, plus the 5 multiplied by my bracket. And if I do that, it works. So this expression is equal to this expression. So based on this alone, if I had this over here, that means that I would multiply the first term by the whole bracket later. So I will get, let's do that with blue, a multiplied by c plus d, plus, so I have plus 5 multiplied by the bracket. So plus b multiplied by this whole bracket. And you might think, why do we need this? Because we can easily use BEDMAS to solve or evaluate these numbers. So why do we actually need this? So if you actually try this out for this, you will actually come up with similar pattern. It will look slightly different, but it will be the exact same thing. But let's look at this example over here. So it says, try to use your observation for above to solve for this expression over here. You can see that in this expression, I can no longer use BEDMAS or brackets first to simplify the bracket here and simplify the bracket here, because you can't add these two. They're not like terms. So instead, I have to use the little skill that I learned, which was if I have a plus b multiplied by c plus d, that's same as saying a multiplied by c plus d. So that's a multiplied by c plus d plus b multiplied by c plus d. So plus b multiplied by c plus d. Let's apply that here. So now I have x multiplied by this bracket. So this is equal to x plus 3 plus my second value, which is plus 7, multiplied by x plus 3. Once I have this, I can use the skills that I have learned before to expand my expression. So I can use the distributive property here, and I can use distributive property here. So I will get x times x plus x times 3, or 3 times x, plus 7 times x plus 7 times 3. So again, I have distributed my x and I have distributed my 7. X times x is x squared. 3 times x is 3x. 7 times x is 7x. And 7 times 3 is 21. Now, do I have like terms? I do. I actually have 3x and 7x, which are like terms, so I can add them together and get x squared plus 10x plus 21, because 3 apples plus 7 apples is equal to 10 apples. So you see that how that investigation kind of helps us expand this little binomial. So here I have binomial multiplied by binomial, and I'm trying to expand that. I can't simplify inside the bracket, so I actually have to multiply it by x by this whole bracket, as I did here, and plus 7 by this whole bracket, which I've done here. And once you've done that, you can actually go ahead and use the distributive property and then simplify your work to get to your final solution. Before we move on, I'm going to do one other example to give you a good idea about how this works. So 3x minus 2, and let's do 2x minus 3. So let's put a little bit of negatives in there so that you folks will become comfortable with those as well. So expanding this means that I'm multiplying the 3x by 2x minus 3, and then I'm multiplying the negative 2 by 2x minus 3. So by doing that, I get 3x multiplied by 2x minus 3 plus, or in this case it's plus, but then I have a negative here, so I will just keep this as negative 2, and I will multiply again 2x minus 3. So what I've done is 3x multiplied by the bracket, and negative 2 multiplied by the bracket. Should not forget the equal sign. And then I will distribute, so 3x times 2x plus 3x times negative 3. And then I will distribute the negative 2, so I get plus negative 2 times 2x. And then I get finally plus negative 2 times negative 3. So then 3 times 2 is 6x squared. And then 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. And then I have only one x. Then I have negative 2 times 2x, which gives me negative 4x. And I get negative 2 times negative 3, which is positive 6. So I will end up with 6x squared minus 13x plus 6. And I have to simplify because I have negative 9x here and I have negative 4x, which are like terms. And when I subtract them from each other, I get negative 13x. And that would be my final solution in this problem. Now let's try another method to do the same thing. So the first method that we learned originally is kind of the fundamental way of solving these. But there are some shortcuts. And the first shortcut method is called FOIL, where F stands for first, O stands for outside, I stands for inside, and L stands for last. So let's try this in a real example. So when we're talking about first, we're talking about the first term in both of the binomials that we're trying to multiply. So the first term here is 3x times x. So we can write it as 3x times x. And then O stands for outside, meaning that we got to multiply the outside terms of both of the binomials. So if you look at this whole shape, the outside terms are 3x and negative 3. So I will multiply 3x times negative 3. And then I will add to that the inside terms. So my inside term of this is negative 5y and x. So negative 5y times x. And finally, I have last, which means the last terms in my binomials. So it becomes plus negative 5y times negative 3. So once again, let's use different colors here to make sure that we understand this well. A, B, C plus D. So first terms, that's my F. And then my outside terms. And then my inside terms. And then my last terms, which are here. So moving on, 3x times x is equal to 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 is equal to negative 9x. Negative 5y times x is equal to negative 5xy. And negative 5y times negative 3 is positive 15y. I actually don't have any like terms here, so I don't have any like terms, so I can't really simplify this any further, but I do want to use the original method and see if we still get the same expression using a different method. So let's write it out first. So 3x minus 5y, x minus 3. So we break this down by multiplying the first term by x minus 3, and then the second term multiplied by x minus 3. And once I distribute, I get 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 gives me negative 9x. Negative 5y times x gives me negative 5xy. And negative 5y times negative 3 gives me positive 15y. And if we compare the two, I get 3x squared, negative 9x, negative 5xy, and positive 15y, which is exactly the same. Excellent. Okay, for the next example here, I have 3xy minus 7 squared, meaning that it's being multiplied by itself. So 3xy minus 7. So using my method, I'm going to start with my first terms. So 3xy times 3xy. Let's write that out. Separated by a plus. And then I have my outside terms. So 3xy times negative 7. And then separated by a plus. My inside terms, negative 7 and 3xy. And finally, my very last terms, which are just negative 7 and negative 7. I will then have to simplify. I have 3 times 3 is 9, x times x is x squared, y times y is y squared, taking care of the first term here. Second term, 3xy times negative 7 gives me negative 21xy. And then I have negative 7 times 3xy, which gives me negative 21xy. And then I have negative 7 times negative 7, which is positive 49. Now, I have to look to see if I can simplify this any further. I don't have any other x squared y squared term. I do have xy terms, and I have negative 21 minus negative 21. So there's negative, and it gets even more negative, meaning that I get 9x squared y squared minus 21 minus 21 is 42 xy plus my 49. And I can no longer simplify this any further. You could try to complete this using this method as well to see if you get the same thing, and you shall get the same thing, but you can choose either FOIL or the original method that we learned to solve these questions. Okay, why don't you folks pause the video and try out to do these questions on your own, and then proceed with the video and check your solutions. Okay, for the first one over here, I'm going to solve it, but I will solve it using FOIL. I'll solve this and this using FOIL, and I'll solve this and this using the original method, so that you can be familiar with both, and also recognize that if you used FOIL for all of these, and if I used a different method, we should still get the same solution. Okay, for the very first one over here, my first terms are x and x plus my outside terms are x and 2, and then my inside terms are -6 and x, and my last terms are -6 and 2. So I should get x squared plus 2x minus 6x minus 12. And if I simplify it, I should get x squared minus 4x minus 12. And for check marks, one for accuracy and one for method is required. And you're going to make sure that you do simplify your final answer. Okay, for the next question, we'll do this one first, and we will use FOIL as well. So my first terms are 4x and 4x, plus my outside terms are 4x and 2. My inside terms are -2 and 4x. And my last terms are -2 and 2. And note that I'm separating every time I multiply. So I do my first term, and then I add my outside terms, and then I add my inside terms, and I add my last term. So make sure that there's a plus between your first, outside, inside, and last terms. So once I do this, I get 4x times 4x, which is 16x squared. I get 4x times 2, which is 8x. I get -2 times 4x, which is -8x. And I get -2 times 2, which is -4. Can I simplify my answer? Well, I have x squared, no more x squares, but I do have x and x. I can simplify these, and I have a constant and no more constant. So let's simplify these. I get 16x squared. I get 8x minus 8x, which actually cancel each other out because it's like having 8 apples but eating all of it. And I'm left with -4 as my final term. In terms of steps, accuracy, and at least one step, and it will be nice to show an optional step actually for both of these, but you don't have to show that optional step, but it is nice to put it in case you do make a mistake here in this step or this step. Is nice to have at least some part marks since you are showing that you know how to use the FOIL or any other steps to solve it. Alright, for this one over here, I have 4x plus 7 multiplied by 3x minus 2. So I will use the original method that we learned. So 4x multiplied by 3x minus 2 plus 7 multiplied by 3x minus 2. I will distribute. So 4x times 3x is 12x squared. 4x times -2 is -8x, plus 7 times, or positive 7 times 3x is equal to 21x, and 7 times -2 is -14. So adding everything up, I get 12x squared. -8x plus 21x should give me 13x minus 14 here. And this should be my final solution. So one optional step here, or method mark, and make sure you simplify your final answer. The next example here, this is same as saying 3xy minus 2x multiplied by itself because it's squared. So then, using my method, 3xy multiplied by brackets, 3xy minus 2x, and then minus 2x multiplied by bracket 3xy minus 2x. And I will distribute, and I get 3xy times 3xy is 9x squared y squared. And I get 3xy times negative 2x, which is negative 6x squared y. And then I get negative 2x times 3xy, which is negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. X times x is x squared. And I have y. And finally, negative 2x times negative 2x is positive 4x squared. So then, to simplify it, 9x squared y squared, and I have negative 6x squared y, and another negative 6x squared y, so they're subtracting, so I get total of negative 12x squared y plus 4x squared. That's my final answer, and you need to show some steps here, and make sure that you simplify your final answer. Another way to multiply binomials is a method which is called the box method, and it's actually a really good way of doing it, and it is useful for many of the students to actually try it out. So what we do with this method is we look at our first variable and second variable, we put it on top of the box, or we can put it vertically or horizontally, it doesn't matter, we just have to do the opposite to the other binomial. For the other binomial, I will put the first term here and the negative term, the second term over here. Just make sure that if you have a negative, you put the negative here, and then you should be set. And this method pretty much works because we're multiplying everything together, and every method that we've been using does the exact same thing, but this one is really, you can understand it visually. So what we will do next is we multiply x by x and write the answer here. We will multiply x by negative 7, write the answer here. 3 by x, write the answer here, and 3 by negative 7, and write the answer here. So x times x on top will be x squared. X times negative 7 will be negative 7x. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. Once you have it set up in this method, all you have to do next is add everything you have in your boxes. So then you will get x plus 3, x minus 7 is equal to x squared plus 3x minus 7x minus 21. And then you have to see if you can simplify it, and you can because you have 3x and negative 7x, and you will get negative 4x minus 21. And so it's a lot easier to actually do the method here and make sure that you're actually multiplying everything together using this box method. So again, this is another method of doing multiplying binomials. So let's take some time to pause the video, use the box method to solve these two questions, and then come back and check your solution. Alrighty, let's use expand using FOIL or box method. I'm going to use box method for the first one, and then for the second one, actually let's use the expanding for the first one and box method for the next one. And you should, whatever method you folks have used, you should get the same answer. So here I have x plus 9 multiplied by x plus 9 because you're just multiplying a binomial, and you should get x plus 9, and plus 9, x plus 9. And then you have to expand or distribute, and x times x is x squared, x times 9 is 9x, 9 times x is 9x, and 9 times 9 is 81. And if you notice, I'm pretty much using the box method here. I'm multiplying x by x, and then x by 9, and then 9 by x, and 9 by 9. So it's the exact same thing, just written differently. And I get x squared, 9x plus 9x is 18x, and I get 81 here. Just make sure you're always showing one method and one final solution, and one check mark there, just either for method itself or the simplification, or making sure that you're simplifying the answer at the end. For the next one, I'll use the box method. So this one, I'm getting x minus 4 times x minus 4. So I'll just draw the box right here. And I get x negative 4 and x negative 4. I get x times x is x squared. I get negative 4 times x is negative 4x. I get negative 4 times x again, which is negative 4x here. And finally, I get negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. So this one will be 16. Or you can put a positive if you want on things that don't have a positive, so that it's easier for you when you're writing it out. So when you write it out here, you get x squared minus 4x minus another 4x plus 16. And once you have that, your final answer will be x squared negative 4x minus 4x will give you negative 8x when you simplify it, and you get 16 here. So again, one method for the one mark or one check mark for the methodology, one for properly simplifying it to your final answer here.